Again, welcome. I am Connie Beard, Chairman of McLean County Republicans. We have tonight 5 of our candidates for the Normal Town Council. I'm very grateful for these gentlemen having come tonight to share with all of us, their view of what they would like to do if elected to the position of Normal Town Council. There are 9 candidates. Obviously, there was a little challenge to get 9 people coordinating on the same night. So we will have another time on another night where we will also have another opportunity for the candidates to come together. But tonight, these 5 gentlemen have come together to share with you. We have with us Scott Preston and Brad Mcmillan, David Blumenshine, Carl Sela, and Steve Harsh. And our moderator is Bruce Haney, who's a member of our executive board. So he's going to be handling the time for questions and answers that will take place later. Here's the format. I'm going to allow each of these gentlemen to have about 4 minutes to tell you what they desire to do if elected on the town council. And then after they've each had an opportunity to do that, you will have an opportunity to ask questions. If you'll see on your screen, there's a Q&A portion of your screen where you could click on that. A screen will pop up and you can type in a question for any or all of the candidates. And our moderator, Bruce Haney, will be going through and screening through those questions to kind of eliminate duplications. And when the time comes for questions and answers, then we will be able to have an opportunity for the candidates to address those questions that are coming directly from you. Once we have finished that question and answer period, then I will come back to the candidates, and in the reverse order from what they started, they will each have about a minute to recap, to share one final closing thought that they would like for you to take away from our evening. Our goal is to have all of this last about not much more than an hour. So hopefully we'll be able to accomplish just that. So I will want to go ahead and start. We drew names at the beginning of the evening before we started as to the order. And so our first speaker tonight is going to be Scott Preston. So Scott, I'm going to ask you to unmute your mic and go ahead and share with our attendees.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Connie. Thank you to the fellow candidates who are on this Zoom and to all the attendees who are watching. My name is Scott Preston. I've been honored to serve on the Normal Town Council for the last 2 terms, and I'm also honored to serve as the vice chair for Normal for the McLean County Republican Party, and I'm glad to be with you tonight. I was born, raised, and educated here in Bloomington Normal. I'm a small business owner. I was the former assistant to our state treasurer, Dan Rutherford, for 4 years after I graduated from ISU. Through these experiences, I've been able to understand the value of a dollar and the value of responsible budgeting. We live in a great community. The people here in McLean County and in Normal work hard, and they should have a government that works hard for them and works hard to not get in their way as they're living their life. We've also been through a lot this last year. We do not live in the same world that we did 12 months ago or more. And looking forward, our families and our small businesses have been through a lot. And it's going to take bold leadership to lead Normal through this next generation, as there are some difficult decisions that need to be made, some changes that need to be made, and some things that we've been doing well that we need to continue doing well. It's important and it's vital that moving forward, the town of Normal, we focus on economic growth, private sector jobs, creating an environment where businesses want to locate, where people want to be, and also where they can afford to be without straining their budget. We want to make it easy for businesses to come here, to stay here, and to hire here, and for people to work here and to want to live here. We also need to focus on keeping our taxes low while maintaining the great quality of life that so many people enjoy in this community, and providing great value basic services, those things which people cannot provide for themselves: our streets, our water, our sewer, and the like, our public safety, of course, our men and women in uniform in the police department, as well as the fire department in Normal. I hope to be able to accomplish that with colleagues here moving forward. I'm asking for your vote on April 6th or before. I'm Scott Preston, and I am again running for Normal Town Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott, very much. I appreciate that. Our next speaker is candidate number 2, Carl Sela. So Carl, please, you want to unmute your microphone and then let you come on and share what's on your heart.
Okay, thank you so much, Connie. I'm Carl Sela, and I'm a normal guy. I grew up on Normal's West Side. I came up through the Unit 5 schools. I delivered newspapers. I mowed lawns. I've had classes at Heartland and classes at ISU. I have kids who are anywhere from elementary school to out on their own, and most of my family lives here in the area. I have an engineering degree from U of I. I currently work primarily with computers, but I also have a strong accounting and finance background. I also served a term on Normal Public Library Board. Some of you may recall, I was a write-in candidate last time around. A lot of people are becoming more aware of how local government and government in general is kind of failing the people. And I thought, great, who can I get behind? But there weren't enough good candidates coming forward. I tried to come forward, but got in a little late, so I ended up being a write-in. However, I stayed in, and I'm told I did very well for a write-in, but write-ins don't usually win, but it was a great experience. I'm back again, and this time I'm on the ballot as I was circulating my petitions. I basically said there's 2 umbrella issues that kind of cover everything else. The current town council works for the town council, not the town's people, and that translates into very poor financial decisions. The town council basically, when they meet, everything is decided before they get there. So having public input is kind of a moot point because it's all decided. And you're not allowed to talk about anything that's, well, until recently, you're not allowed to talk about anything that wasn't on the agenda. Again, trying to keep out public input. 5,000 people signed a petition saying, keep the mural uptown. And the council said, well, our plan is to take it down, and the plan trumps the people. Similarly, when pretty much an entire neighborhood said, the new fire station you're planning, please, can you try to put it somewhere else? The town didn't even look into it, much less, try to keep the people happy. The council policy on, as I said, public comment policy until recently was you can't talk about anything that's not on the agenda, in which case it's kind of a moot point because it's already decided. They changed that recently because they know they're up for tough elections this time around. About the one exception to the rubber stamp policy is about a year ago, they said, let's keep the property tax flat instead of raising it. But then the very next meeting, they raised our property taxes anyway. So all this time that they're not really working for the people. 20 years ago, we had pretty much no debt. Now we're at over 80 million, and that's not counting our pension debt. Our property taxes go up almost every year. They're raising water rates. They're basically paying double or triple rent rate for one uptown circle. Meanwhile, for town properties that they're renting out, a lot of those are sweetheart deals as low as $0. As far as real estate transactions, the town has a history of buying high and selling low. All of this is not very good stewardship of taxpayer money or anything else. We pay about $3 million a year in interest. If we weren't paying that interest, we could double our road budget or do, improve our recent snow removal. I thought they did a good job, but it could have been better if we had more money. So if you think we should have less debt, pay less interest, if you think you should have a town council that actually listens to the townspeople, then you should vote for me on April 6th. I'm Carl Sela, and I'm a normal guy. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl, very much. We appreciate that. We're moving on to number 3, and Steve Harsh is going to give us his thoughts in about 4 minutes on his desire to serve as normal council member. Steve, unmute your microphone, please. There you go. Very good.
All right. Okay, Connie, thank you, first of all, for putting this form together. My name is Steve Harsh. I was born and raised in Bloomington Normal. I believe I have the business experience and common sense that is desperately needed on this council. I've owned and operated 2 separate retail businesses, a real estate office, and for the last 30 years, financial services office. There are 3 very real reasons why I'm in this race. even though this is not what I had planned at this stage of life. However, nothing stops or changes until somebody stands up. We can complain all we want, but that does nothing until somebody takes action. I thought after unsuccessfully running for mayor of Normal in the 90s, that was the end of political life for me. I had no desire to do it again. However, the situation has gotten so out of hand now, I cannot just sit on the sideline any longer. Reason number one, unnecessary and uncontrollable spending. Over the last 20 years, as Carl pointed out, Normal's gone from virtually zero debt to over $80 million in debt. That's approximately $1,500 for every man, woman, and child in the town of Normal. And guess who pays that debt? The good citizens of Normal. Reason number two, new and increasing taxes, fees, and regulations, which strangle businesses and families that are a direct result of reason number one, the unnecessary spending and uncontrollable spending. Our real estate taxes and sales taxes are among the highest in the country. If you've lived in the same house in Normal for the last 20 years, your real estate taxes have doubled if you didn't have the senior tax freeze. In that same time period, your water bills increased over 400%. And if that isn't enough, during the past year, the town, with the support and direction of the current mayor and council members, has fined and regulated certain businesses out of business while allowing other businesses selling similar products to operate freely. Reason number three, repair and maintenance of infrastructure, streets, sidewalks, water, and sewer. Our streets used to be maintained out of our real estate taxes. Now we need a special tax on top of a special tax on top of a regular sales tax to maintain our streets. Well, the question I ask is, where is all that money going? We have certain neighborhoods putting up with brown water for over 2 years, purchasing water to consume while watching their water bills skyrocket on a product that they can't even use. Where's all that resident revenue going? You might ask yourself if this is a path to continue for the next 20 years, real estate taxes doubling again, and another 400% increase in your water bills. They say insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. I'm running to help end the insanity, but I cannot do it alone. You've got to elect new, other like-minded people to this council to get that job done. And again, my name is Steve Harsh, and I am running for the town of council.
Thank you, Steve, very much. Appreciate that. We're moving on now to our fourth council candidate, and I'll ask David. He's already ready to go. His mic's unmuted and everything. So come, David Paul Blumenshine, please.
Connie, I missed the radio business because of this campaign, and to stay in compliance with the FCC, I've had to remove myself from the air. So this kind of feels like I'm back on air on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. You know, Connie, thank you. Thank you for creating this event. I think this is what it's about. It's about a conversation. And I think we should have these conversations. I know Carl alluded to earlier that it seems like we have had our voices kind of not heard over the years. And I think that that's changing. I think that obviously there is a wake-up call because there's many qualified candidates that are running for town council. So I appreciate Scott, I appreciate Brad being on the call, Steve. Carl. I am David Paul Blumenshine. I started my political career back in 2010, I think, when I kind of started getting acclimated to what was going on. I was like a lot of people, just kind of unplugged from politics and what happens in local government. And suddenly I started realizing that life happens around the decisions that are made, not only at the city of Bloomington, but the town of Normal. And they directly impact us from everything from, as Steve alluded to, our water, to safety through our fire and police, to the infrastructure of our roads, to the garbage collection. So local government is where it happens. I know recently I've run for state representative, and the state of Illinois is in a situation that I hope that the town of Normal doesn't end up in. We are a microcosm of what truly happens. And we have a great opportunity here in the town of Normal to lead the state of Illinois, showing a way to go, to be fiscally responsible, to get back to where Carl alluded to earlier, to a zero-based budget or zero debt. That is critical. You know, we can sit here and wax all night about what has happened and what hasn't happened, especially over, you know, the past 18 to 20 years, similar to the state of Illinois, and how the pension has grown, just like in the town of Normal. We have pension debt that we have find ourselves running from. And the only way we're going to be able to address these things is to truly lay it out on the line. You know, growing up, I was taught to not spend more money than you have. I was taught to not charge my customers or taxpayers more money than they can afford. And I think that's where we have to go. I think we need to freeze our budget in Normal. I think we need to freeze taxes. We need to stop taxing. And then I think we need to live in a zero-based budget world for a while, meaning that nothing gets added to any of the departments without justification and conversation. And not conversation that doesn't happen in that beautiful town hall room that we are paying for. That's where that conversation has to happen. And that discussion needs to be, you know, brought out into the public light, transparency. For too long, I think the town of Normal, people in the town of Normal, which is what has led to this current robust candidacy of not only Brad, but Carl and Steve and Scott upping up again to get back in there, is because we want to see the town of Normal move forward and position itself for the future. I think that with what lies ahead for the state of Illinois, we can't afford not to be in a position of having reserves. You know, I'd like to see us do programs and projects like the underpass, but I'd like to write a check for it rather than look for the state or the federal government to kick in. Because I know one thing about the state and federal government. Once you start taking money from outside sources, you owe them. It's indebtedness. And that cycle needs to not only stop at the federal level, the state level, but it definitely needs to stop in the town of Normal. And that's why I decided to get into this race. Obviously coming off 2 state rep races. It doesn't matter where I serve. I know I have the ability to enter into these conversations and truly come away with looking at how we can be prepared for our children and our grandchildren in the future. I appreciate the time tonight to voice all this. My name is David Paul Blumenshine. I am running for Normal Town Trustee. Please vote. You can start that. Here's, let's see, the 25th, isn't it the 25th, I think? Early voting
today.
starts today. As I looked at my watch, you can start today. Please vote today. But definitely get out and vote. It's so important that we get people involved in consolidated or local elections, because truly, this is where your life is determined on how you live.
I wish that we would be able to spend hours of talking about things like that. Unfortunately, I have to hold you guys a little bit in rain. We still have our last, but definitely not least, our 5 gentlemen here is our candidate, Brad Mcmillan. So Brad, your mic is open. Please share with us your thoughts.
Well, thank you so much, Connie, and thanks to the McLean County Republican Party for hosting this forum tonight. When I was a senior at Illinois Wesleyan University, Professor John Wenham, who was a Republican member of the McLean County Board, encouraged me to do the Washington semester program. And I was able to intern for House Republican leader Bob Michel in Washington, D.C. And President Ronald Reagan was in the White House. I always remember my first day in that internship, because I'm sitting at my office desk, and Congressman Michel comes in, and he's in a fluster because he's looking for a 3-cent stamp, because he doesn't want to put any more postage on a piece of mail than what is absolutely necessary, because he knows that it's taxpayer money. And that's something that has stuck with me my entire life. After I graduated from Wesleyan, I worked for Congressman Michel for 1 year before I went to law school at Southern Illinois University. I practiced law in Central Illinois for 10 years. At the end of that, I opened up my own law firm. So I've been a small business owner. I know what owning a small business is. I then went on to be district chief of staff to Congressman Ray LaHood for 10 years. We represented the western part of McLean County and came to Bloomington Normal often. Now I've been at Bradley University for 14 years. I direct the Institute for Principled Leadership in Public Service, which promotes ethics in government. And I also have been a statewide leader on redistricting reform and ethics reform in Illinois. Last week, the best thing ever to happen to Illinois occurred, and that Speaker Mike Madigan is no longer a part of the Illinois General Assembly. He has been our #1 nemesis on ethics reform and redistricting reform in the state. I have great relationships with Dan Brady, Jason Barrickman, Rodney Davis, Darren Hood. These are all people that I know very well. And if I'm elected to the Normal Town Council, I'll be able to work with them for the good of the community. My priorities are infrastructure. I live on Normal Avenue in Normal, Illinois. Our road is full of potholes. Our sidewalks are deteriorated. We need to put a higher priority on infrastructure investment in our community. I want to help small and large businesses, and I want to attract new businesses to Normal, because if we boost our economy, it lifts all of our boats. There's too many empty spots in our community. You look in Uptown, there's empty spots. You look on Veterans Parkway Drive, there's empty spots. The Normal Town Council should be providing leadership in filling those spots. I am fiscally conservative. I spoke out publicly against doubling the gas tax last fall. 3 council members, Stan Nord, Scott Preston, and Kathleen Lorenz, voted against it. I would have been the 4th vote to not support doubling the gas tax in Normal. I hope that you'll give me consideration. Again, my name is Brad Mcmillan, and I am running for Normal Town Council.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, gentlemen. You've all did pretty well staying to that time limit I gave you, and I appreciate that. I'm going to kind of remind everyone that's attending that we do have a Q&A feature. If you look at the bottom of your page, there's a little button. You can click on that and you can type out a question that if you have for any of these gentlemen, that we're going to work at trying to pull those up and share and give them a chance to respond to questions directly from those that are attending. I will take a moment while people are thinking about that and trying to pose their questions, take a moment to repeat the information that we're going to be doing additional candidate forums. That's one thing about the consolidated races is there are so many races shoved into one day. April 6th is our election day. Early voting has already started in Normal today. Early voting will start in Bloomington on March 12th, but between the city council races, the mayoral races for both cities, the school board races, the township races, it's a busy season. I thought last fall was crazy, but this is almost over exceeding that. But we have great people running in all of these different races. So we're trying our best to get the voters to be engaged, because historically, the consolidated races have been overlooked. The consolidated races have been the turnout has been very, very poor, and compared to people get all excited and charged up about the national races or the big races in the fall. But this is where the real nitty gritty decisions are made. You gentlemen who are wanting to serve on the city councils are going to be the ones that make the decisions that really impact our life directly. And that should be far more important to people than what happens on the national level in so many ways, because like Brad was talking about the gas tax, that directly impacts our pocketbook, and the roads, that's directly impacting the quality of our cars and how well they're holding up. So we're trying to encourage people to be aware that these consolidated races are so very important. Now, so we're going to continue to have work on letting voters meet the candidates for the different races. And so please, we ask you to go to our McLeanCountyRepublicans.org website, McLeanCountyRepublicans.org, and on our Facebook page. And we'll continue to make post notices about the future candidate forums. All right, now I see that we've got some questions, and I'm going to ask our moderator, Bruce Haney, who's a member of our executive board, to maybe bring out the questions that he maybe have for our candidates. Bruce, are you ready to do that?
Yes, thanks, Connie. Our first question is directed to Scott Preston, and I'll have him go first, but the others can answer or provide some input on that as well. Public pensions, this is from Craig. Thank you, Craig, for sending this in. Public pensions continue to be state and local problems. Both our police and fire pensions in the town of Normal are currently funded under 50%. What steps will you take to get pensions funded to the state minimum of 90%? Is Normal's goal of 100% funding realistic? And then for Scott, as an incumbent, what steps have you taken as a council member to lobby for pension reform in Illinois? And for the other candidates running for the first time, what steps will you take to lobby for needed reforms? Scott, take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you. Craig, thanks for the question. It's an important one. And you're absolutely right on the funding levels of our public pensions, primarily our police and fire pensions in Normal, and the state of Illinois pensions. I mean, I don't think it is any surprise to anybody watching this that the state of Illinois is a fiscal mess, and it has been for decades, and the state public pension system is front and center in that dysfunction. And it's to a point where, I mean, you're almost out of options with what can be done at the state level with the state public pensions system to try and create some kind of solvency with that, with those programs. At the local level, we cannot do that to our police officers and our firefighters. On a moral standpoint, we can't do that, I believe. And then also from a state mandated standpoint, the state has put out that we are to have our police and fire pensions funded at 90% by 2040. in Normal, the vast majority of our police and fire pension contribution from Normal comes from property taxes. There is no reason why it has to come exclusively from property taxes. And I think that, especially moving forward, we have to look at, everything across the board. One option of that being making additional cuts and reallocating out of our general fund to offset some of the property tax burden, because we live in Illinois, where it's the second highest property tax state in the nation. And we can't have this dichotomy of, well, we're not supporting our police and firefighters with their pensions, or our property taxes are just through the roof and continue to be increased like crazy left and right. Thanks.
Okay, either the candidates, Brad, it seems like you're ready for a response there. Try and keep it to a minute because we have several other questions queued up.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with Scott that one, we have to fulfill the responsibility to the police and fire departments. Again, I think we got to go to our state legislators and ask for relief on the pension mess that we're in. We have to try to get this situation under control. And, we've got a good Central Illinois legislative delegation, and we need to strongly advocate for pension reform for the town of Normal.
Okay, any others with the input on that? Just raise your hand, we'll get you queued in.
I think I just raised my hand. Is that my hand?
Go ahead, David. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, here's the issue. The pension crisis didn't happen overnight. Normal's debt didn't happen overnight. How do we approach that in the real time? Gets back to this. It's going to take some tough decisions that should have started many years ago. Unfortunately, they didn't. We have too many career politicians involved in the mix. Scott is right on one thing. Is it solvable at the state level? A state can't declare bankruptcy. The General Assembly would have to go back in and change the Constitution of Illinois in order for that to happen. I don't want to see Normal go down that. Brad, I wish there was a way that we could get the state to pony up. I don't think I'm going to hold my breath on that happening. I think the governor's still waiting for the federal government to bail him out. We need to start making sure that we balance budgets year in, year out without raising taxes. Because if we continue to raise taxes, as Steve said earlier, if we continue to double the gas tax, raise property tax, and every other type of tax that we seem to want to attach to the people of Normal, they're going to leave. That hasn't happened yet. We don't want that to happen. That's not going to make it so we can actually retire or get to that goal of 2040. I'd like to see it happen before that. I'd like to see taking some of the monies that we have spent over the years for unnecessary projects or vanity projects and put it towards funding our pensions. That's a start, but also getting back to a zero-based budget is a start.
Okay, am I okay to go with the next question? Any other quick comments?
Nice.
Steve, go ahead.
There we go. Yes. First of all, the pensions were funded over 75% over approximately 20 years ago. So where's all that money gone? That's the big problem always is spending and government spending on things that government has no business being involved in. And if we just got control of that and had government be responsive and responsible for the things that government's supposed to be responsible for, police protection, fire protection, curbs, gutters, streets, water, sewer, we would be in so much better shape. But we can't have government running, owning, and controlling everything and everybody, and then expect there to be enough money for pensions, which for one thing, the pensions, that whole system needs to be changed from a defined benefit plan as it is now to a voluntary contribution plan. You can't do that by law with the people that are already on it, that you have to honor that commitment. But for all new hires, our council members, our mayors, everybody in the state needs to get together to start lobbying Springfield to change the pension system.
Okay, and with that, we'll go to Carl, and Carl, we'll have you start off with the next question first. Instead, so you want to handle the pension issue first, and we'll go to the next one. You'll be first. Carl, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. As far as the pension, mostly good comments from everyone else. It's mostly spending. If we don't put through the underpass that the Mayor Coos really wants, that right there, what we don't spend on that would cover almost 10% of our pension debt. We need less vanity spending and more focus on pensions, roads, sewers, and that. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Carl. Now the next question to all candidates. Carl, you'll go first. What's your position? And this is from Jay. Thank you, Jay. What's your position on spending nearly $5 million to run water towards Rivian under the prospects of future growth when Bloomington has already provided water to the plant?
Prospects of future growth are nice, but when we're talking about we have debt, we have interest, why are we spending money prematurely? Bloomington has a fire station they've never used because they said, oh, there's going to be growth. We don't want to be in that boat. Furthermore, if we need to spend money on water, perhaps we should use it towards fixing older issues like the neighborhood that has had the brown water. I know that's currently on the agenda because it was brought up again by outsiders, not by council members. So that's good that that's getting addressed, but we need to focus more on keeping things nice as opposed to spending on new things that prevent us from paying down our debt and then incur later expenses because we have to maintain those new things when they're not necessarily needed.
Okay, thank you for the quick and short response. Let's keep pithy going here. So Steve, how about you next?
Yes, we have no business running another water line right on top of Bloomington's out to Rivian to steal water revenue from Rivian. That doesn't make sense. The plant's been out there over 30 years. There hasn't been anything developed in that area to substantiate what normal putting extra water lines out there. The money should be spent where it should have been spent, on maintaining the current water lines. These people with the brown water issue have been dealing with that for over 2 years. It's absolutely unacceptable. There hasn't been anybody on the council respond to them or help them out at all until this election season came up and we find out about it and are just up in arms about it. That's absolutely ridiculous. For people to pay that kind of money for water bills, have the automatic increases that they have so every year, so they don't have to make it an issue in front of the public, just like the legislators do for their salaries.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Let's go to Brad.
Yeah, I'm going to have a different viewpoint in that, I think this has to be looked at carefully. The question is, will Rivian expand their footprint beyond their current plant? And will other businesses be attracted to come to our area? And if that is the case, and that has to be looked at carefully, then that's going to boost the economy for Normal, and it's going to bring more resources into the community that can then pay for infrastructure improvements and other things that many of the candidates support. So the question is there actual evidence and proof that there's new businesses that are going to be attracted if that money is spent? And will Rivian expand their footprint beyond the original plant, Mitsubishi plant that's out there? You know, the reality is Rivian is going gangbusters right now. They're hiring hundreds of people. And you got to realize that when they hire hundreds of people, they're the people that buy new homes, that go to our current local businesses, that help spur our economy. So it has to be looked at thoughtfully and carefully, but I'm not going to make a statement that I'm completely against something that might bring significant economic growth to Normal.
Okay, thanks, Brad. How about David?
Yeah, I think the critical thing that we have to continue to look at is we are the Twin Cities. Bloomington has water service out there. We want to put a line on top of that. I get what Brad's saying. It's important to look out to the future. How will Rivian expand their footprint? Will other businesses be attracted? However, I think the other critical aspect of this is, in order for us, Bloomington is not much better off than Normal when it comes to indebtedness. Part of that is because we operate as two separate entities and have for a long time. I remember a gentleman from Illinois Wesleyan, Larry Coulter, put an initiative forward to join the two municipalities back in the mid-'80s. I think that's something we need to explore. We have to stop trying to compete with somebody that is not better off financially with us. And they happen to be somebody that we share a lot of mutual resources with already. It's time we stop the duplicity. That's what's run our debt up. It's time we look to Bloomington and truly try to put a forward-looking growth plan together that includes them. Because I don't think we're going to grow as this leader of McLean County, as the town of Normal, without the city of Bloomington coming along.
We may have another entire forum based on that concept, but we'll move on and we'll go to Scott.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that there are parts that I would agree with a lot of answers that were already shared with the others. To start off the top, a couple people mentioned the brown water, and I wholeheartedly agree that nobody in the town of Normal, whether it's the 4 houses that we're talking about here, whether it's 1 house or whether it's 400, should be dealing with unsafe or unhealthy water or brown water issues. That is one of the core things that as local government, it is our responsibility to do. I am glad that these residents who were affected forced the issue, because to be candid, and I and other council colleagues didn't learn about this until they forced the issue. Not everything that goes from, that is going on is council apprised of. And, once we became aware, that was just months ago. I absolutely support that we are making that change this year. There's a temporary fix that town staff has been working through and flushing for months thus far, but having the permanent fix, replacing that main and correcting the problem for good, though it isn't cheap, is important. And doing that this year and bumping that up is incredibly important. Now, onto the Rivian. First of all, we have not passed a $5 million extension at this point. We just haven't voted on that and passed that. I agree with some of Brad's comments about not committing one way or another to it. I also agree with some other comments about we should not be in competition with the city of Bloomington. We are one community. I think that many people, when they are driving through town, don't make decisions on where they're going to go out to eat, what gas station they stop at, what store they go to, based on whether it's in Bloomington or Normal. We're one community, and I think that having a regional approach is more efficient and more productive than trying to compete amongst ourselves. I will put into context, and I will say that I am not interested in Normal trying to take the current Rivian service by the city of Bloomington, trying to take that. I don't have interest in it. But to put into context, Rivian uses the amount of water in 1 hour, roughly, that the average household in Normal uses in about a month. And so they are a huge user of water service. And if there are either expansion plans for Rivian, I don't know, or specific supplier businesses that do pop up around that area, neither Bloomington nor Normal is likely, how their current infrastructure is there, able to service those without adding additional water mains. What it looks like moving forward is something that we have to take a look at. I don't know of specific plans for anything at this point, but once we do and we have all the information, I'm taking a look at it one way or another and making the decision based on all the information.
Okay, thanks, Scott. We'll try and hit a really quick question here. And this is from Roy. We all know the town of Normal has a lot of problems, but what do you think is the biggest facing Normal at this time? So I'll run through, if you can be really quick, because we have a dozen questions here lined up. And I'll start with Brad.
Yeah, as I've gone around the neighborhoods, collecting signatures for my petitions and just having conversations with Normal residents, I do think there's a lack of trust in Normal town government. And I do believe that we need to open up the town council to citizens to be able to come and share their views. It's their government. It's not the elected officials. There needs to be more transparency. And so I think we could do a better job of building trust back up with the Normal town council.
Okay, thank you. Carl, quick answer to that one, please.
I agree. As I said, one of my main issues is the town council works for the town council. We need to get new people in who will work for the townspeople, people who are open-minded, who aren't necessarily going to follow party lines and party politics, but will listen to everybody. That's basically the bottom line. We need fresh blood that isn't beholden to anyone.
Okay, very good. Steve. Unmute, please.
Spending and taxing are the biggest issues that I've found on the people that I've talked to going around on politicians getting the petitions signed and talking to the different people in the community. They are just fed up with it. There isn't a tax or a fee increase or a regulation that the current administration, all of them except for one, Stan Nord, there isn't one that they don't like. They just have a propensity to spend and tax. They're more interested in building a legacy to themselves, having a building named after them with taxpayer money or a plaque to honor them somewhere because of the taxpayer dollars that they spent. And until we get that under control and we get new people in that are dedicated to just doing what government should be doing and instead of building legacies to themselves, nothing's going to change.
Okay, we'll go to Scott.
Thanks. Providing good value basic services that are efficient and effective for the people that we're serving is important in protecting taxpayer dollars. I also think that economic growth and having a bolder and a new look at how we manage our town budget and what our priorities are is an important dynamic, especially after going through this last year and seeing how all of our lives and small businesses have really been turned upside down.
David?
Well, I think if you took a poll right now of the citizens of the town of Normal, their number one concern right now would be potholes. Because there's plenty of them out there. I spend most of my day driving around town. Our roads are in horrific condition. However, what Brad and Carl said, and Steve also jumped on top of, is that if the people don't feel like they have a voice, why have the roads just didn't get there over one winter season? And anybody that tells you that is not being truthful. This has been years and years and years of neglect. And now we don't have enough money to take care of all the infrastructure that needs to be taken care of. So we're going to have to piece that out over years. That takes a willingness to have hard discussions about how we're going to be able to afford that going forward. We shouldn't allow the roads to ever get in the condition that they're in right now, ever again.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to jump to the next question. And let's see here. This is from David. And again, we're running low on time here, so be as quick as you can. How do we bring money into our coffers without giving businesses sweetheart tax deals like we gave Rivian and Portillo's?
Did you say that was for me?
Well, go ahead, David. Go ahead and start.
Well, I thought you said the question was from David. Is the question from David, or was it?
No, it's from a David.
Okay, it's from a David. Well, thank you, David. That's a great question. And you're right. You know, we should have equality. We shouldn't pick and choose winners and losers. And that's what we face going forward, is that we haven't done a very good job of picking winners and losers. Now, granted, Brandt, which is outside of normal, is a great pick. So is Rivian. Companies like that is what we need. But in order to prepare the foundation for companies like Rivian and Brandt, we've got to be fiscally responsible and accountable to the taxpayers.
Okay, thank you for keeping that short. We're running low on time. Brad, how about you take a shot, one item?
Yeah, you know, I think the way we bring new revenues into normal is by attracting new businesses. And I agree that the town council shouldn't be involved in picking winners and losers. But I think Normal is well positioned to attract clean energy companies and green technology companies. I'd love to be a part of a leadership team that would do that. And if we can bring those new businesses to Normal, it will increase the revenues coming into the town of Normal.
Thank you. Carl, how about you?
There is a place for incentives, but they need to be better researched so that we're giving incentives to things that are economic engines that will bring in money from outside. Portillo's is tasty, but it's a restaurant. It's not going to bring in that much. Brandt was a great choice. Too many times we give incentives to friends of the mayor or other things. Oh, it sounds good. We need to actually crunch the numbers.
Thank you. Scott.
Thank you. I'll actually build a little bit off of Carl's last comments there. One of the things that I think we've been missing, because I would also agree that while there is definitely more to the equation than incentives, there are ways that we can be business friendly. We can promote economic growth for jobs and companies that will either expand here, who are currently here, or who will come in who do not currently have a presence in this community. Across the board, economic growth is a vital importance. But to Carl's point, having a standard set of metrics that, and this is then my opinion, not suggesting it's his, but a standard set of metrics that if company X is looking at bringing an operation to Bloomington Normal or Normal at the first time, that regardless of where they locate in the city, the town, other areas in McLean County, if they bring X jobs that are at a certain pay scale on average, that would then allow for X kind of incentive, and having the metrics up front and removing the subjectivity of the process, I think is an important one. It also increases transparency from the start. And if it's something that is applied correctly, can reduce any competition between the city and the town. And hopefully, while it would not be needed every time in every instance of business growth, in those cases when it does, it can be the difference maker in promoting economic growth for the area.
Okay, Steve, if you could be really quick, I'll try to wrap the remaining questions into just a description, and when you make your closing comments, you can address them as you see fit.
Yeah, the town, in my opinion, has no business giving taxpayer money to businesses to come in here and operate that are competing with other similar businesses. If if they're going to be making a product that is going to be sold elsewhere, or so, and that would be something to look at. But the whole thing is, if we had a tax structure that was a lot more agreeable to businesses to come here in the first place, that was better than other similar locations. We have the best location in the state. If we had a better tax structure and made it more reasonable for businesses to operate here, they would come. We wouldn't need to give them incentives, because it'd already be the best place for them to locate.
Okay, thank you. I see, I'm looking at the clock here, and I'll let Connie take over when she wants to run this down. We have a dozen questions out there we haven't gotten to. I'll give you a quick rundown of the type of questions there are, and then turn it over to Connie to see how she wants to use the remaining part of our time. But from Alice, Alice has a concern, probably more of a national view on the concern of making sure our vote really matters and are not switched or changed, feeling a little disillusioned about what happened in the presidential election. Then there's a comment about how are you going to work with the mayor who's made no secret about his liberal views and wants to see something realistic, how you work with the mayor if you're in opposite ends of the spectrum. People want to know what special talents you'll bring to the council. And let's see here. There's some that are directed to a specific candidate. So I'm going to direct those to the candidate after the forum, and you can make some public comment on that afterwards. If someone wants to put their individual contact information in there, I'll be happy to forward that on. Position on performance-based tax incentives and mandatory lockdowns and finding businesses who are just trying to stay afloat with the COVID. I think that's enough. I know you have some prepared comments there. So Connie, I'll let you take over here and where you want to use the rest of our time.
Thank you, Bruce. We will are going to go through in kind of a reverse order of the opening time to allow each of the candidates to, with their choice of what they want, whether they want to speak to any of the issues that Bruce just brought up that haven't been addressed yet today, or make a summary of your views, or just share one more thought if it's a fresh new idea that you want to leave our listeners with. This is recorded, and we will be following up with a poll, a survey being sent out to the people that have attended so that they can give feedback. And we will preserve, I believe we can preserve all of the questions that were submitted and be able to share those with the candidates later, so they can also be aware of issues and concerns that you, the voters that have tuned in tonight, have. So I'm going to start though right now with our closing minute, gentlemen, and ask Brad to come back and share his closing thought.
Thanks, Connie. And, you know, it's been good to be with all of the other candidates in the forum tonight. You know, we have gone through a really tough period with the pandemic. My heart goes out to the local businesses that have struggled. I would not have voted to fine Joe's Pub. I was in favor of the carrot approach, that, you know, waiving the liquor license fees for this coming year for those restaurants and pubs that were following restrictions. But fortunately, we're well past that, and now our restaurants and pubs are open. And I'm really hoping that we can completely turn the corner here very soon. You know, the special things that I bring as a candidate is I've got a lot of really great public service experience, and I've had great role models. You know, the thing that I can promise everyone is that I will be responsive, I'll be accessible, I'll listen to everybody, I'll work with everyone, We're not always going to agree on everything, but we can find common ground, and we can move the town of Normal forward in a positive way. Thanks for including me tonight.
Thank you, Brad. All right, we move on to David for his final words.
Okay, yes, thank you, Connie, and thank you to the other candidates. It is good to, like Brad said, to hear opinions and conversations. Hopefully when I get back on air and the radio, I'd love to have you guys come and visit me there. I'd love to have you in studio and we can continue this conversation because I have 2 hours, so I have plenty of time to obviously have these conversations. But, you know, voters do matter. And it crushes my heart to think that people are not in full confidence of our electoral process. I can assure you, Kathy Michael at McLean County is second to none. She operates a very fair election, fair and free elections right here in McLean County. So get out and vote. Tell your friends. There are fair and free elections in McLean County. Working with the mayor, I love the question. I hope to be working with Mark Tiratilli. I campaigned for Mark the first time around. Mark helped me with one of my campaigns for state representative. I don't think that there's a finer human being in the town of Normal positioned as Mark is to be the mayor. He understands the issues inside and out. He understands the town of Normal. He's a family man. I'm pretty confident, and he's somebody like the people here on this Zoom call tonight that I think can listen and have conversations with anybody. So what am I going to bring to the council? I'm going to bring that continued push to get us back into a position that we were in 20 years ago. So our grandchildren, our children and our grandchildren don't have to pay for all the niceties that we decided to put before their futures. Their futures are what I'm running for. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And now we're going to move on to Steve for a quick finishing comment. Be sure to unmute your mic, Steve. You have 1 minute.
Hey, I'm still technology challenged. All right.
There you go.
The citizens of Normal have a decision to make on April the 6th. Do we continue building magnificent buildings and proposed underpasses and buying properties and businesses to mold Normal into a consultant's vision, regardless of what it costs you taxpayers? Or do we rein in the spending and become more accountable and transparent and responsible government that actually does for the taxpayers what it's relegated to do? Things like fire protection, police protection, curbs, gutters, streets, roads, water, sewer. This community should be thriving and one of the more desirable places to raise a family, and still, it will be with new leadership. It would not be necessary to use millions of your tax dollars to entice businesses and families to locate here if our tax structures, fees, and regulations were already better than similar locations. If you enjoy continuously paying more and getting less, you do not need to make a change. On the other hand, if you're not happy with how it's going, how it's been going, with new taxes, new fees, more regulations, businesses closed, all the spending that has to keep going on, then it's time to make a change, and that can happen with new leadership. but it's only going to happen with new leadership. You're not going to get different results doing the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. We'll move on to Carl. He's already got his mic open. Good.
Oh.
Move, your last
I had
thoughts,
left it
Carl.
open. Glad I was quiet. Some of the discussion about Joe's, I had left that out when they were talking about how do we bring business in. We need to stop making Normal well-known as a business unfriendly environment. We have too many regulations, too many taxes, and a mayor that wants to punish people who disagree with him. We need a new mayor. We need to stop punishing people. We need to open things up to more input and more businesses instead of picking. Other than that, what do I bring to the table? My engineering degree, my accounting background, I crunch the numbers. There was mention of COVID. I had some right-wing friends online at one point who basically said the whole thing was a hoax based on this and this data. I went out to the CDC website. I pulled down the spreadsheet. I crunched the numbers and I said, here's where your math is wrong. Yes, it's real. If you need somebody who can do that, like I said, with our potential for incentives or potential for whatever else, we need to do more number crunching and less decision making based on, oh, that sounds nice. So if you want somebody who can actually crunch the numbers for the best interest of the taxpayer and will actually listen to input from all the people, vote for me, Carl Sela, on April 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. And last but not least, Scott Preston.
Well, Connie, thanks again, and thanks to everybody who stuck around and watched the entirety of this. Also, thanks to the other candidates on here. I think most of us know, as probably the majority of us are not first-time candidates, that you're putting yourself out there. Some people will like what you have to say, some won't, and that's all part of the process. Everything, in that regard is fair game when you put yourself out publicly, and I appreciate you guys, appreciate you guys doing it and taking the chance, and I'm certainly doing that as well this time. Thanks also to the party for hosting us this evening and for those good questions that we had. The only couple things that I'll highlight from those questions that were remaining is one, I was one of two who voted on the side of Joe's and did not vote in favor of fining Joe's when that came before the local liquor commission recently. I also was in the minority on voting for the motor fuel tax, the gas tax increase that came back. I did not vote for doubling the gas tax, though that did pass in Normal. And I know those were two things specifically that did come up in conversation. Again, I'm Scott Preston. I think that moving forward in Normal, we have to focus on economic growth, good quality public services that are a great value to the people who live here. And at the end of the day, things that come out of City Hall, the decisions that are made, impact yours and my life more than anything out of Springfield or Washington, D.C. You wake up in the morning, you turn on the water, it's the town's water. You drive on the street, the town paving the street most of the time. In your time of emergency, when you call 911, it's your local police department or fire department that is that's responding. And not all local municipal issues are inherently partisan. And there are times where people will agree on issues and times that they won't, but knowing what you stand for, gathering all the information and making a decision and then backing up why you voted a certain way that you did, I think is all that we can ask for. And I hope that I've done a good job. I appreciate the opportunity to have served in Normal here and to serve all the constituents and the residents of Normal and small businesses for the last 8 years, and I hope to continue doing that. I'm Scott Preston, and I'm asking for your vote on or before April 6th. Thanks.
Gentlemen, thank you so very much. And thanks to all the people who've tuned in. We will be sending links out to all of our participants, our panelists or candidates, so they have a link to the video, and we will be posting this video onto our website as well as onto our Facebook page. So McLeanCountyRepublicans.org and McLean County GOP on Facebook. Keep an ear and eye out for it, and please watch out for the next series of forums we'll be doing. Thank you all very much, and I hope that we will join together again in another time in another format to share good ideas.